It is now my pleasure to introduce our LLM class speaker, Clémence Lepine. Clémence earned her law degree at the University Pantheon-Assas and then specialized in criminal law through a Master II in International and Business Criminal Law at the University Pantheon-Sorbonne. Prior to attending UCLA for her LLM degree, she interned with the Thales Defense Mission System within their Department of Quality Management, reviewing issues relating to bribery and export control. She came to UCLA to pursue her LLM degree with a specialization in criminal law. And after graduation, Clémence will return to Paris and work at Lyceus Partners, a small white-collar criminal law firm. Please welcome our LLM class speaker, Clémence Lepine.
What is a commencement? A commencement is a beginning. It's a new start. For us, LLMs, it feels like yesterday since we've had our last commencement. In fact, it was only 10 months ago when we moved to Los Angeles and started our new life at UCLA School of Law. Commencement can be scary. LLMs will tell you about that. This year was particularly challenging for all of us. If it was not about the language, it was about the system of law. And if it wasn't about the cultural differences, it was just about being homesick. But this year was also incredibly exciting. We all came alone, but we are all living with new friends. And when you live abroad, hundreds of miles away from your home, those friends becomes family. And here, I'm not only talking about the LLM students, but truly about the whole law school community, especially JDs, who made us feel like welcomed and a part of their family. I guess that now we are talking about family, I should also talk about our true relatives. First, because my dad flew from Paris just to be here, but also because without their support, we will not be here today. This year would not have been possible if you were not behind us, pushing us to reach for more, whether you moved to LA to be with us or cheering us up from back home. Living in a different country for a year all changed us, and I am sure of that for the best. We all learned the meaning of being resilient, and as we were told so many times when we first came in, we all understood the importance of leaving our comfort zone. We should always remember that. If you should cherish the great memories, Joshua Tree, Thanksgiving, bar reviews, the Barrister Ball, and so many more, we should also remember the bad ones. We should remember the days stressing out about being called on in class, or the days worrying about finals. I mean, can someone really remember all the hearsay exceptions? At the end, those memories should be the good ones, the ones that proved us that we were capable of doing it. And in moment of doubts, we have to remember those instants and recall that we should never stop trying harder. Speaking for 199 students coming from all around the globe is not easy because our backgrounds are so diverse. But that's what makes the LLM community fascinating. In a couple of months, I've met corporate law attorneys, future public servants, judges, and so many more interesting profiles. It was an honor for me to represent you during this year as your LLM president. This is the end of our LLM year, but the beginning of so much more. Some of us are going back home, some are staying in the United States, and some are leaving for another new foreign country. For each and every one of us, this is the beginning of a new adventure, one that we can only hope will be as fulfilling as the one we spent here. One of the many good things of being an LLM at UCLA is that you can take any class that you want. Not only can we take any class that we want, but we were also encouraged to try some new experiences, including clinic or seminar classes. Teaching to LLMs must not have always been easy, but I know that every teacher made sure that LLMs were able to succeed and made themselves available to help us if we needed more explanation. I want to thank you for that. I would also like to extend a warm thank you to the whole UCLA Law School. You've showed us how valuable our law degrees can be. We've seen this year too many tragedies, from the Kavanaugh hearing to the New Zealand shooting, but every time, the UCLA community helped us face the astonishment, anger, and despair. Every time, the UCLA students gathered to support the communities that were hit by such tragedies. And every time, UCLA helped us heal. As future lawyers, public servants, professors, we will be the one shaping the face of tomorrow's world. We will be the one in charge of making sure that events like that don't happen again. And if they do, we have to remember that UCLA taught us to step up, to raise our voice, and to not stay silent in front of the horror. We should never stop fighting for what we truly believe in. And you know what is so great about LLMs? We will not be doing that from one single country, but from all over the globe. That is why, LLM class of 2019, I want to congratulate you not only for your LLM degree, but mostly for your future accomplishment, which I know, in my heart, will be great.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Ian Grady, who will present the award for Professor of the Year. This past year, Ian served as our SBA Vice President and Chair of the Dean Student Advisory Council, in addition to completing a judicial externship with the California Court of Appeal. Prior to attending UCLA Law, Ian graduated summa cum laude from Emerson College with a Bachelor's of Science degree in Political and Organizational Communications. After graduation, Ian will be working for the law firm of Schumanner, Odson, and O here in Los Angeles. Please welcome Ian Grady.
Hello, everyone. Every year, the graduating class selects a Professor of the Year, and I am absolutely delighted that our class has selected Professor Beth Culligan as the 2019 Professor of the Year. And I was talking to Professor Culligan yesterday, and she said I could say whatever I wanted during this speech. So what follows is a 2-hour history of the self-regulation of the maritime lobster industry in the state of Maine. No, it's not that. Instead, I get to talk about something that I am almost as enthusiastic about, and that is Professor Beth Culligan. To anyone who has had a class with Professor Culligan, or just heard her speak, or seen her walking around the halls of the law school with her framed, autographed photo of Patrick Swayze, this award comes as no surprise at all. It is incredibly well-deserved. Almost anyone could stand at the front of a room and dryly recite facts of any particular case, that is, so long as they could speak loud enough to be heard over the cacophony of our furious typing. And we, the students, would be there to write down every single word that professor said, including hello or now we'll take a 10-minute break, because you never know what will be on that exam. You just don't. But that's the easy part, reciting information for us to collect. What great teachers do, what Professor Culligan does, is breathe life into the material for her students, which is why her course evaluations are laden with glowing praise and a little bit of fear. for her ability to not only explain criminal law and its complexities to her students, but to animate those complexities to make them real. She has not only mastered these subjects, but she empowers and encourages us to fully understand and appreciate them as well. She would be the first to tell you that she has high expectations, but she also does everything in her power to help us meet those expectations. And it's clear she holds herself to the same high standard. Professor Colgan is an extraordinary example of what leadership and advocacy look like. I've heard many students say that in approaching a mock trial or a moot court argument, they had one goal: channel their inner Colgan. Which is why I was struck by something you said, Professor, when you accepted the Rudder Prize for Excellence in Teaching. Yes, that's right, a different award for being a fantastic teacher a few weeks ago. In your remarks, you talked about imposter syndrome and how at times during your education and your career, you've been afraid that you didn't belong or don't measure up. You said you've even felt that way at times during your career as a professor. I was, in a strange way, comforted, as I'm sure many in this audience would be, by the notion that someone we look up to so seriously faces those same moments of doubt that many of us do. However, I would offer, humbly, that if in the future you have that feeling, you'll look on the shelf to this award and be reminded that for the class of 2019 and countless others, you are far from an imposter. Rather, you are an inspiration and an example. Thank you, and congratulations, Professor Colgan.
Thank you so much, Ian. Before I get to my planned remarks, I do want to say that when I found out that Ian was going to be introducing me, I was simultaneously delighted and a little bit panicked, because having had Ian as a student, I knew that he was both a beautiful writer and a gifted orator and would be a really hard act to follow, and you have proven me right. So thank you so much. I'm very humbled. Okay, thank you, class of 2019, for this great honor. Today, of course, is a day to celebrate all you've accomplished to get here, the hard work, the sacrifice, the dedication it takes to be a part of this great profession. But I'm going to spend just a bit of time talking about what's ahead of you. And by a bit of time, rest assured, I do realize I'm currently what's standing between you and your diplomas. And so I do promise to be brief. Now, as many of you know, I was a practicing attorney for over a decade before moving into academics. And so I know very well what's ahead of you as you leave these hallowed halls. And based on that experience and my experience here, there are three key reasons why I am very excited for you. So the first reason is that I know you have what it takes to do this job and do it well. To explain how I know this, let me just very briefly describe for those of you in the audience today who have not gone to law school what the Socratic method is. You've actually heard it referenced a few times today. So now, in most law school classes, we professors don't just lecture to the students. Instead, we engage in a dialogue in which we call on a person in the class, often without any notice to them that it is coming, and then we ask a series of increasingly difficult questions about the law. And we do that because we're teaching a particular way of thinking on one's feet that's helpful not only to learning the law, but essential to practicing it. Now, rumor has it that my version of the Socratic method, that back and forth exchange, is particularly tough. I like to think that when students say that, they mean it's particularly fun, but we'll stick with particularly tough for a moment. Now, the other reason I know these graduates has what it takes to do the job will require a second brief explanation. So if you'll indulge me, I want to share just a quick story about the job I had right after law school. When I first arrived at Perkins Coie, which is a large law firm in Seattle, Washington, that was good enough to employ me following my law school graduation, this firm assigned a partner named Susan Farringer as my supervising attorney. Now, Susan is an incredible attorney, and to a first-year associate, she was a bit terrifying. She did not quarter fools. She expected the highest quality work from anyone on her cases, no matter how junior. And on top of all of that, she would do things in her spare time like rock climb up precarious cliffs just to really nail down the intimidation factor. Now, working with Susan was like taking a master class in what it meant to be a great attorney, but it didn't come easy. I remember one of the first assignments she gave me involved drafting a brief on an intellectual property matter. I brought the draft into her office, and she had me sit down and wait while she read it. When she was done, she sat back and began to ask me a series of questions about the law and about the facts of our client's case. She grilled me for a while until after one of my responses, she said, "There, that's it. That's the argument." And then she handed me back my draft and said, "Now try again." So graduates, when I say I know you have the skill it takes to do this job and do it well, I am in the perfect position to tell you that. Because when I sat in Susan's office, I was in the same position you're about to be in, with 3 years of law school training under my belt for exactly that type of moment. You won't be perfect. The whole reason for that interaction was that my first attempt at drafting the brief was far from it. But you will be prepared. And I know you'll be prepared because I've not just sat in that seat where you will be, but because I've been on the other side of that exchange with you. In our classes, I've tried to be like Susan, though let's be honest without the awesome rock climbing thing. But I have been the one to ask you the tough questions, to plumb your knowledge, to push you to think about the law and its application. I've seen that moment when you get it, that there it is moment, when the law snaps into place. I know just how well you can do this. Now, the second reason I'm so excited about what's in store for you is that I've also seen you work with each other with a great deal of humor and camaraderie. So for example, just a few days ago, I ran into 3 of today's graduates in the hall just before their last law school exam, and it sounded like it was going to be pretty tough. These guys were like a comedy troupe, keeping each other's spirits high in hilarious fashion. That humor and camaraderie will serve you incredibly well as a lawyer, particularly for the times when practicing the law is less than glamorous. So for example, I once had to climb under the desk of a corporate executive at a Fortune 500 company and dig through a pile of documents that were interspersed with his old sweaty gym clothes in order to gather the records I needed for a case. In another shining moment, I once defended a deposition inside of a janitor's closet, which in turn was inside of a prison. If I hadn't had my friends to laugh with about those moments, including the friend under the desk with me trying to avoid the sweaty socks, the job wouldn't be nearly as much fun. But you guys have that. And as hard as it is to say goodbye to the great friends you've made in law school, you will find that camaraderie in your future colleagues. And don't forget, you will have the support of the family and friends outside of law, including those celebrating with you here today. Now, the third reason I'm so excited for you is that I know that being a lawyer can be an incredibly rewarding career. Whether it's negotiating a contract or filing a patent or standing up for the poor and disenfranchised like Jesse Kornberg does, the people you represent will be putting their businesses, their families, sometimes even their lives in your hands. That's the most amazing thing about this profession you've chosen to join. It's both a tremendous responsibility and a real gift. In fact, when I decided to make the leap into academics, the only real hesitation I had was that I would miss out on that, on the relationship I had with my clients, on the great honor it was to tell their stories and seek justice on their behalves. That is what had inspired my love of the law. What I didn't know then, really couldn't have known, is that as a professor, I would find so much inspiration in all of you. The truth of the matter is that day in and day out, you have inspired me. You inspire me with the hard work you put into your classes. You've inspired me by doing everything I did in law school, but at a time in which that is made all the more difficult by the fact that the very rule of law is up for grabs. And for our LLMs, you've done what I did in law school in 1 year and often in a second language, so hats off to you guys. Now, class of 2019, you've inspired me by your willingness to think critically about the law as it is and as it should be. And on that note, I have to give a particular shout out to my seminar students this term, who just continually blew me away with their brilliance and insight. And that's just what's happening inside of the classroom. You've also inspired me with what you do outside of the classroom as well, whether it be the care you took in designing a moot court problem, taking the lead on a highly public debate about whether to pay NCAA athletes, creating a program bringing together artists of all stripes to create community for people who are formerly incarcerated, traveling to investigate and bear witness to family separation at our nation's borders, and on and on and on. And so for all of this and so much more, I thank you, not only for this honor that you've bestowed upon me today, but for all you have done during your time here. We at UCLA have been lucky to have you. So thank you again, and congratulations, class of 2019.